Hello. I think this is working. Yeah, it sounds like it is. Cool beans. Hi there, Max VM. Max Mav XN. Mavixon. Mavixon. It's just Mavixon. Is that the best way to say it? Mavixon. Sounds cool. You say it like that. Patrick. Hello. Welcome. Here we go. Just want a little quiet ambience. Helps me think. Trying to see if maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 more people show up. What's the word? Bird is the word, I guess. Just waiting. I'll start rambling once a few people show up. Sorry for missing last Saturday too. I said, if anybody saw the comment, just been really tired, really busy. Been working on the weekends too, because my work's allowing it for me to do extra hours. So just catching up on bills and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. MXB. Yeah, and I'll keep forgetting, unfortunately. It's just because it's really hard when people change the names a lot, like, because their name will be one thing one place and another thing another place, and like really hard to keep track of. That is space in my brain I do not have. Unfortunately, my space is finite as far as what I can hold at any given moment. Tends to be, at least. Like, I remember MXB, but I don't remember anything else about that. I just remember MXB. I would have to, like, hear something else to trigger a memory of what other things we've communicated or something. Yeah. So many different things. And then something will trigger that, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what it is. So sorry, I was just like something flying in my face. That's why when somebody's like, oh yeah, remember me or something, my first response is usually, what did we talk about? Oh, okay. I'll usually be like, what did we talk about? And then if they tell me, that will trigger the rest of the memories associated with that conversation or that interaction. Just the person's name is very, very difficult for me most of the time, unless the name stands out in some interesting way. But I might remember the name and nothing else. Just waiting, hoping for at least 5 people to be here. I know there's people that watch it after or whatever, but I don't know. I like to at least have 5 or 6 people. What games do I enjoy? Oh my. Well, since I'm waiting anyway, a lot. But these days I'm mostly playing a lot of indie games, older ones that I just missed over the years, or just random shit, like whatever calls my attention. I play a lot. I'll play free games because they're fun, like they'll be interesting. And there's been this trend that's cool where an artist will release a game for free, and then they'll if it gains traction, then they'll like build on that and then make like a more complete game. that they then sell for like rather cheap usually, you know, like no more than $10 or something. And it'll usually be like a single dev or a small dev team. I really like that stuff. It tends to have a lot more soul, a lot more heart than a lot of the, you know, obviously the big corpo games with big budgets. I'm not saying they're all good. I'm not saying indie is inherently better. I just tend to enjoy a lot of that stuff more. It's often more experimental too. Very art oriented often too, which I like. I mean, who knows what gamers or whatever want more than the very people who enjoy those very things. Definitely not a corporation or studio. Definitely not that. So yeah, I usually don't play very many multiplayer games either. Not that I don't want to dabble eventually. I really should, because there are some pretty cool ones out there that I'd be interested in trying. But you know how it is, right? I got kind of really accustomed to like playing solo games. Shoestring type charm. Well, the shoestring aspect isn't what makes it charming, in my opinion. I think it's just you know, what is it? What's that old saying? Scarcity or necessity is the father of innovation or invention or whatever. They tend to require themselves to be a lot more careful, deliberate, and sort of, you know, outside the box when it comes to trying to like implement ideas and things on a shoestring budget, which is pretty cool. Very awesome stuff. And by shoestring, it's usually like, it'll be like literally like one or some people making a thing, and they're like, no one's paying them. And they're probably working like a full-time job, and they probably spend all their free time deving their game, nothing else. I went back and started playing, and I know it's not quite indie anymore because, you know, it's quite a big name nowadays, but I went back and played the Basement Collection, because I tried it and then like I forgot about it, and then I was like, oh yeah. And so I'm currently trying to get all the achieves on that, which is Ed McMillan's like old Flash games kind of collection thing. And man, those games are so janky, but they're fun, and I just like the aesthetics and stuff. I've been following his stuff since like since nobody even knew who it was, I guess, like in the early 2000s. Yeah, when Blue Baby was born. Yeah, the Blue Baby. This is a cry for help website. I'm old. Don't forget that. Old as shit. Alright, that's enough people, I guess. 5's fine. Alright, so to get into it really quickly here, I often wonder what people like assume or like imagine. They think like my reason is, or reasons, or like, hi Trudy, we're caring a lot about like, you know, neurodivergent causes, but more specifically schizoid stuff, and you know, trying to advocate more for not just like therapy and help for people that have this issue, but also you know, advocate for ideas about neurodivergent people in general having far more access to the means in which you know, individual human beings help shape society and all this sort of stuff. And anyway, but I've probably spoken about bits and pieces at different instances. I've probably rambled about one aspect of it, another aspect of it, in a different way, or what have you. I've probably done it in a pretty disorganized and all over the place way. And I was like, okay, so how can I explain this in a sort of like layer by layer sort of way? Because I know some of my reasons might not resonate with everyone. You just dig odd ones? No. No siree. I mean, that's not untrue. Um, and the way my mind works, I I rarely like something without having like 10 different layers of why it is that I like it or care about it, right? And it's all like, you know, in my macro-associative thinking, my little schizo thinking, you know, I always see dots everywhere where everything connects in a variety of ways for different reasons and so on and so forth. It's just where I go. That's where my brain likes to be. But I'll start kind of on the most, maybe for some of the Zoids and stuff, the most yucky or well, it wouldn't be interpersonal, would it? I don't know. Me as an individual, I guess, level or reasoning for why I care about those. So I'll start with that, and then I'll kind of like move up a level or two of like abstraction, I guess would be a good way to put it. So, hopefully the music's not too loud. Tell me if the music's too loud or anything like that, please. Oh my god, my phone's just being weird. Ignore that. So, on a more individual level, I've obviously dealt with these issues for all of my life. And I dealt with these issues pre-internet, right? Because I'm 41, so, you know, my transition into Zoidhood, if you will, from, you know, being like a child to an adolescent to a teen that eventually sort of disconnected and detached from a lot of their kind of aspects of their sense of self, identity, you know, the symptoms and everything associated with it started kind of increasing over the years. And as I've described in the past, you kind of forget who you were before it happens, right? Like who the child was, right? Before it happened. You kind of like don't remember having all these like strong emotions about so many different things. And you know, maybe you had more a feeling, a stronger feeling of awe and wonder and hope and things like that, right? Contentment, enjoying, you know, finding a higher degree of pleasure maybe in activities. Maybe that's something that there's some like recollection in the back of your mind that might have been the case when you were like very young. I'm talking like, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old or something. Maybe not that late. And eventually, you know, it all kind of over time, right? And that usually happens because, you know, things became more social and it became more and more apparent for you that this is not the place to be. And that experience and those troubles, I empathize, obviously, with. And I know not all neurodivergent people go this route in order to deal with and cope with it, and you know, with the trauma of it all. But I know that route because that's the route my brain decided to take to manage and deal with these things. And so because of that, that's like level one, I guess, of one of the reasons why I care about this subject. I know what it was like. I know what it was like, what it's like to struggle with it, to feel at odds with this need to be isolated, this need to be sort of detached from others, and the process of sort of losing your kind of attachment to your own like feelings and shit like that, right? And managing that and using all kinds of like rationalization, intellectualization, and everything to just be able to mitigate the difficulties that causes. Right? So that's like one of the reasons. That's like one of the most more base individual me reasons, right? And some of the other reasons are still me, obviously, but they just get a little more out there, I guess, to some degree. I don't know, but some of you probably will get it. Like I said, most zoids are either more kind of on the autist side or the schizo side, so I don't know what's going to resonate with who or what. Maybe all of it. I don't know. But I'll get there. So beyond that, a little beyond that, is the thought that I have children now, right? And having children, I know that, there are certain things that are genetic. I know there are certain aspects of, mental health, and, oftentimes parents and their children will have similar types of sort of responses or defense mechanisms, and there's just like, it's not all genetic, but you know what I mean. Like there is a nature factor there. And there's also, I knew the strong possibility that my own children were going to be like ADHD. I don't know if they're like more kind of, like I said, macrosocial or schizoid like me. My oldest doesn't seem to be, but she's definitely ADHD. And I knew that being neurodivergent of a cognitive kind to a significant degree, it's going to be a hard battle. It's going to be a difficult thing. And so obviously I don't want her to end up a zoid, because she doesn't have to. Not because it's a bad thing, but because she doesn't have to. Right? She has me, mother, highly supportive. I'm very, obviously, because I am, and I study these things, I'm very neurodivergent aware. I understand a lot of the things that and difficulties you might deal with, including things like bullying or feeling sort of unrewarded by like activities that everyone else seems to be encouraging. Stuff like that, right? So I'm aware, and I know, and I can have these discussions. And so she's not feeling unsupported, alone, confused, and sort of like without resources, right? But I also remember there are other kids, and there are other young people. There are other people in their 20s, there are other teens, and undergoing this process, adolescence, right? Hold on, my little one's coming to tell me goodnight. Give me a second, sorry. All right. There we go. I think I'm back. Anyway, so on this layer, I think, oh man, there are other kids, there are other teens, there are other adolescents going through this shit. There are other adults that have already zoided the fuck out, people in their 20s and stuff, that have gone like, that route pretty deeply already. And I know the existential sort of difficulties that causes and everything. But again, there are other kids that will zoid out. And I think it's unfair for them to have little to no options. Right? I think it's unfair is an understatement, but I think it is not right. It's not right that not only obviously the conditions that cause a kid to end up this way occur, right? But that's something beyond my personal influence of any kind, right? But I did think in my mind, I want to do my part to improve or at least advocate, even if I'm alone in this, the idea that these types of issues and the types of children that develop these kinds of issues because of the trauma I often talk about regarding feeling that alien and disconnected and unrewarded by the social environments that they're essentially kind of for lack of a better phrase, forced to adapt to, right? I don't think it's fair for there to be little to no resources, right? We should be able to recognize this sort of personality disorder, which I think is more of like a way of dealing with a very unique kind of complex PTSD. We should be able to help, well, one, do what we can when we notice these things happening in a child, if they're not already incredibly good at masking, or for them to have options that are actually viable as they get older, for things to, get worked on, improved, for them to be able to reconnect to their emotional range, for them to deal or overcome aspects of the symptoms like anhedonia and the avolition before it gets worse, for them to be able to realize that yes, they can have connections, they can create connections that are rewarding, and it's not impossible. It's just requires unique parameters for the type of person that they are, whether more schizoid or more autistic, or with a mix of ADHD or whatever it is, right? And that maybe their requirements for human connection are different, and they don't have to detach from everything and everyone. Your feelings are, in fact, useful. They are valid. They're useful. They have a place in the external world. They do not have to stay inside your mind and your mind alone. Right? So that's another reason. Yeah. So we're going to move up more layers. Right? Away from, like, I don't know, my personal life or whatever. The next one would be ruined potentiality. And not necessarily, not really ruined by the individual with the potential, though it does kind of turn into that, but it's hard to fault them considering the situation. But one thing I have noticed amongst a lot of schizoids, and I'm not just talking about like people that or suspect they are or anything like, but people that, like, I personally, I can't diagnose anybody, but I personally can confirm based on my repertoire knowledge on this at this point, this is a zoid, and I've gotten pretty goddamn good at sussing it out between that and differentiating other shit. And usually those people have so much potential for good, for progress, for thinking in ways that far extend the normative perspective and experience, right? Now, how, you may ask, right? Well, a couple of easy ones would be, well, if they have spent most of their life averse to or uninterested, is more usually the case, and a lot of social interaction, a lot of social things like going to parties, making friends, finding a partner, right? If they spent most of their time not doing any of those things, they probably spent most of their time kind of buried in their special interests, whatever they may be, right? Buried in art and books, and I'm not talking about like art, no, but I'm talking like, any kind of art, media, story, writing, fiction, nonfiction, STEM, liberal arts, soft sciences as they call them. I've always had issues with that term, but and things like that. They spent, philosophy, spirituality, God knows, right? They spent a lot more time doing other things for a lot of their life. That's a lot of information they've gathered. That's a lot of mulling over. That's a lot of questioning, right? And as a individual that sort of went that route because of the previously described sort of trauma, schizoids often already have a sort of questioning, skeptical attitude toward a lot of things, many things. And it's that kind of questioning, skeptical nature that can also be there. It can have definitely its negative consequences, but there are a lot of positives, right? There is a lot of questions that are asked, solutions that are come to, and everything else that, well, they were doing instead. And I hate to see all that sort of stay trapped in there and not be implemented, not be turned into something actionable, something positive, and that can not just give them a sense of meaning, but give others and possibly reduce, suffering and other people that are suffering and dealing with stuff, or different sectors, maybe involving their individual interests. Right. So that's one reason I care about the well-being of schizoids. That's a little more outside of, I guess, just me. It's just kind of I think there is a general untapped potential for some pretty awesome stuff that often the very person that has this issue cannot recognize, or usually because they cannot recognize that any of their own efforts, any of their own skill, knowledge, interest, whatever, capabilities, or that they even have any, that are strong enough, or that the world is not a place that changes, all these sort of oftentimes very negative, very resigned to this kind of helplessness or nihilism or so on and so forth, right? Like, it's just, and I understand the context, and I'm not what's the word, minimizing the realness of why a person ends up this way, but I can personally see that there's all this sort of progress, beauty, and it's just so many things that are just kind of being locked inside their minds, for a lot of reasons. And oftentimes, even when they have a skill set, or they have a potential, they can't even recognize their own potentialities for the same reasons. Because when your condition is kind of stems from the idea that nothing inside of you should or will have any kind of value outside the internal, or it'll be destroyed or tainted or misattributed or misused or manipulated. There's a lot of ways a lot of concerns you can have there. But when the trauma is based on things that, like, ideas of that nature, or experiences more, it's a very hard struggle to get somebody to think otherwise or believe otherwise. But like I was saying, were many of these people able to reconnect to their emotional range, overcome a lot of their anhedonia and evolution, discover notions that they might be averse to or don't understand, like friendship, love, in ways that make sense to them, in ways that are conditions that are actually ego syntonic for them. You have a lot of really good shit. A lot of really, really good stuff there. For everybody, in my opinion. I'm not talking about just for that person. Because that's kind of what I was saying before, but just for people. And I forgot to turn on the chat on the screen, but yeah, but they themselves might not be able to recognize that often. To recognize my good now, but do not wish to cause waves nor chaos upon myself. My peace by revealing it. Yeah, but your situation is way different than most of the people that I talk to here, Trudy. So I can't even speak for what you should do. Your situation is. I'll tell you one thing, guys. Whatever bad times you've gone through, good luck. Good luck. It's not a competition, obviously, but Trudy, like you go ahead and stay safe as you need to be. You've overcome enough, is what I'm saying. You've overcome quite a bit. So. Yep, you did. So definitely, some of the stuff I'm saying isn't as applicable. You're doing everything in the best you can, considering. DID is something else. In any case, that's another reason, I guess, I care about the Zoids. So let's see if we can go another layer. I recognize the possibilities that an acceptance and recognition of the full expanse of human cognitive sort of capability and non-normative cognitive societal structuring can lead to immensely beneficial possibilities for just human civilization as a whole. It's just absurd to me that it is just, it's not even being fully recognized yet, but there's starting to be some rumblings. Unfortunately, it's like under, a very capitalistic framework, but some rumblings of, oh, look, neurodivergent people are really good at things that most people are not as good at because of the way they think and the stuff they care about, right? The framework in which it's currently being looked at is lacking, but it's also not recognizing the consequences of having a normative, cognitively normative kind of structuring of stuff. There isn't sort of a self-awareness of that on a cultural level. Yeah. And I don't think it'll be in my lifetime, if ever. But that doesn't stop me, That doesn't stop me. I don't care. We're getting to the, really more macro. So this is the stuff where I don't care if I have any kind of impact on. I'm still going to try to have what small domino I can place if I place one, but I do not hold myself responsible, or I'm gonna be the guy. I don't do that stuff. I don't want to be the guy. I want there to be a lot of people doing these things. I don't want to be the guy for anything. Good things should just be worked on and strived toward. Suffering reduction should just be a cultural staple. Especially the kind of suffering that just doesn't do shit. but destabilize society and hurt individuals, and for the benefit of like those that deem themselves worthy of those rewards, because of some kind of delusion of merit, oftentimes. Yeah, that's definitely one big cultural delusion in most cultures and in the West as well, but like it's this delusion of like this merit fucking psychosis. Oh well, if you work hard enough, then you earned your piece of the pie, kind of thinking. But anyway, it's just wild. The rationalizations for why it's okay for other humans to suffer significantly. I don't know. But in any case, that's we start getting into more and more schizoid concerns and how it's connected in tangential ways, but that are still very emotionally real for me, about why I care about schizoids. Right? And if we go more steps beyond that, it starts getting really kooky. Right? It starts getting more into magical thinking, odd beliefs territory, which I keep all that stuff in check for myself. Like, I know those reasons. I had this interesting conversation with my friend about how, like, I don't know how true this is, but I find it interesting that if you're kind of, and this is just an idea, but when you have ADHD, you're oftentimes like driven by looking for novelty, right? Stimulation, novelty, interesting, boring, interesting, right? And I think that's like one of the reasons I was able to sort of keep going and pulling myself out of things, because being sort of melancholy and doing nothing because of the melancholy, the boredom it was causing me was more uncomfortable than the discomfort it would cause me to just do things, right? But anyway, that's a whole different combo. But one little piece of, and I would want to talk about this one day that I found interesting is because of that novelty seeking sort of need or interest that most ADHD people will kind of possess. If you're kind of more on the autistic side, you might get bored of, like, you might have multiple specific interests that you spend a lot of individual time doing or jumping from, every month or whatever. Like, you grind different things for different periods of time and you keep jumping, and when they're on the more autistic side of things, so like when they see, say, somebody that just goes too in depth, too mechanical, too piece by piece about a subject matter, they tune out. They're bored because they're like, they already do that. Like, that's something that they've had to, like, manage themselves and do, and it's boring because it's where they've been doing that, right? And so they have this interest in, like, the novelty of, like, more macro-associative schizoid thinking, because they're like, that type of thinking is like, it's something, it's like a realm that's a bit more challenging and interesting and so on for them, right, to tackle and grasp, and and also because, like, they may say things or explore things that they themselves maybe will miss, and then they'll make connections, and that's really interesting and fun and fascinating, and it leads to other things and so on, right? And I feel the opposite, right? I really like, and it kind of ties into a joke that Shadowfall, which some of you may know who that is, would make, is that all like, oh, angst really likes autistic people, right? And I think That's why I can listen to like a 2-hour video on one particular subject, right? In what, you know, is termed like autistic detail. And because I don't think like that. That's not what I do, right? And so it's challenging and it's interesting for me to listen. And I'm also fascinated by like the amount of like dedication and digging they had to a particular thing, the days and hours they spent on that thing. And they weren't bored. They weren't bored. They were not getting bored of it. They kept finding more things inside of the things and more things inside of the things, right? And that very thing is not as interesting to my friend who is on that side of the tracks than the stuff that people more on my side of the tracks are doing, because it's novel. I feel like that's the ADHD thing, right? And so yeah, like if I meet somebody that's kind of more on the schizo side of things, but they don't have their shit in check, like they're just going like full loose associative, full referential, full magical thing, not magical thing, but you know, just associative, macro associative sort of thinking, and they're not leaving room for like different kinds of stuff on different sort of layers of understanding, where you start getting a little more concrete and stuff. And they can't have that conversation with me because they're like up here, but they have trouble with the conversations down here or over here because they're all, I sympathize, but like on a personal level, yeah, I get bored of listening. I get bored of listening. I understand where they're coming from, what they're connecting, right? Because I've connected similar dots when I was younger. When I was in my early 20s, I used to like believe in things like reptilians, and you know, I would have probably in my early 20s, I probably would have believed something about like the, you know, everything that has to do with like adrenochrome and like all this stuff, right? Like I would have just, my automatic thinking of systems are bad, they're limited and bad because they're, you know, confined and controlled, right? Intuitively, the more schizoid part of my brain just goes, ew, I don't like that, right? But and so then like thoughts and ideas are formed and so on and so forth, and then they turn into beliefs, and then you get entrenched in them. But I don't know if it's the ADHD, but like I was always questioning my own ideas and thoughts, and when people would question my like kooky thoughts and ideas, I'd be interested in like what they said, and I'd be like, oh, okay. Like something like cognitive dissonance is something I've always like explored with myself. If something makes me feel a sense of cognitive dissonance, I'm like, but why? Right? But why? And so in my mind, I'd be like, oh, is this a trap? Is this a weakness? Is this like a blind spot? Right? And so then like I would explore it, and so that would let me check myself and balance things in my mind, right? Know when to go, okay, hit the brakes, angst, hit the brakes. Like this, just because it feels right, doesn't make it true, right? And I think autistic people deal with sort of a similar problem too, right? When they have trouble exploring outside of the realm that they experience things in, right? Right. Like they like their whole world becomes something that sadly other people treat as inconsequential or irrelevant, but it's only inconsequential and irrelevant to the degree that they're claiming, because everything's been structured around what is normative. What they are preoccupying themselves actually does have value, and there is something of concern there that should be looked into and discussed. But should it consume their entire existence? No. And why can it sometimes? Well, sometimes from what I've been told and heard, it's because they feel like they're one of the only people that care enough about the thing, so they don't want to be somebody that doesn't. Because that thing will disappear, that thing will not be noticed anymore. I've heard arguments or thoughts like that. Kind of more on the autistic side of stuff, right? And so, and I empathize with that notion and idea, because I have similar ones on kind of my side of the tracks. Right. So again, those are just more untapped potential, more untapped societal level potentialities for harm reduction and progress, and, you know, just being better humans. You got to sleep and eat and bathe. Hell yeah, you do. Hell yeah, you do. Hell yeah, you do. I think that's why there's so many schizos and autists out there that like kind of fuck up in those territories. Forget to eat. Hygiene may be questionable sometimes. Or maybe their hygiene's good, but their health is not great due to malnutrition, dehydration, or maybe they're the opposite, overeating, and sort of like it's kind of funny if when you talk about the body, the human body, like when I've heard more like autistic concerns about the body, it's like my body is too overwhelming, right? My body is too much. Like my body there's just too much. There's too much. It's a sensory overload kind of experience, right? Everything's just there's too much noise. There's just too much stuff. It can, you know, and then, and more schizoid concern with the human body is like, it's just, it feels so irrelevant. It feels so like, you know, ephemeral, fucking, like some, like it's just some kind of meat puppet thing, and I don't even want it, you know, like it's just, oh, you know, it just gets into like weird like territories like that, and I totally get that shit, right? That's like where I've been, where that's like the more like you're kind of like more disconnected from your physical body, not like overwhelmed by it. You're disconnected. It's like a bothersome to deal with, right? Like most, like, you know, when I hear autists complain about their body, it's like, oh god, like I hate, it's so like these textures and everything's so meaty and slimy, and you gotta poop, and you gotta do these things, and it's all just so like, oh, can I just like focus on the things that I want to focus on? Why do I have to take care of this thing? You know, like it's because it's like it's too much maintenance. It requires too much, right? And for me, it's like, oh god, this thing. And I do take care of myself significantly, only because I cannot stand being unhygienic. But I don't take care of myself in other ways, right? Like I don't consistently go to the gym like I should be, right? I'm very inconsistent about that. My eating habits are really inconsistent. I just got put food in my mouth. Huh, stomach hungry. Shut up, stomach. Ugh. Right? I want to get back to things that I want to like ponder about. Stupid body needing things, right? And I've gotten a million times better at that. But point is, it's like it was always like for me, it always felt like an inconvenience, like a thing that's just constantly wanting my attention. That I'm like, oh god, please stop. Why do I have to do all these things with my body all the time, right? Yeah. Is ADHD an easy diagnosis? I believe I have it 100% due to personal experience. Like I would read passages in a book several times, like 6 times, and it would be in my mind was somewhere else. I mean, there is said to be, you know, there's arguments with that, but there is said to be like an inattentive type and an hyperactive kind, people that fluctuate between it. I am considered to be an inattentive ADHD person. So yeah, I would say I would have trouble with that. Focusing. I have to like create an environment for myself to be able to focus, hyper focus on something that I find uninteresting. If I find it interesting, I could hyper focus on it and tune everything else out. But if it's something I need to get done that I don't find particularly interesting, that's when I have to like really work at it. And that's why I take meds for that, because it makes a lot of things difficult, which include remembering things like taking out the trash and stuff like that, because it doesn't cross your mind. That's why it's like, oh, I'll do it later. I gotta look into this other thing, you know? So, you know, I'm about to tap into the secrets of the universe, man. But, exaggerating, but not at the same time. But yeah. So but if there was like a recognition of the value of people that are like that, there would be a support system for it, and then there would be reciprocated sort of understanding and metacognitive expanse, shit like that. Grim Phoenix, inattentive and it messed up my whole life. Just assume I didn't have it because I was hyperactive. Yeah, no, yeah. But yeah, inattentive is like it. Inattentive ADHD is more like the kind described as tuning out and just being in your head and just thinking about a million different things in your head. Or like somebody is talking to you and they say something that reminds you of something else, and then you just start thinking about that. And then sometimes you might do the thing where you interrupt what the person's saying to bring up what's in your head. And they're like, have you been listening? And you're like, yeah. No, it's just a thought. But inside you're like, what you said for the last 3 years. It's past. Like that's kind of what goes on in your head. The inattentive one. You're just like, and you know, obviously you learn to mask because people get really upset. Oh, you don't care about what I'm saying. Or, you know, you got a problem with me, or that's rude. And it's like, I didn't do it to do that for that reason. I'm sorry I found what you said less interesting than what you said that reminded me of something else. It is not a personal vendetta against you. Our own pet, yeah, my dog has to take me outside for walks or I wouldn't go outside. Well, there you go, see, right? And you need to go outside. You need to get some fresh air. You need to walk outside. That's good. Good job, doggo. And good job on you for doing it, because your doggy makes your doggy happy. That's what he needs. Just looking at the chat here. So yeah, I mean, like, even though, like, obviously my main advocacy and my main focus is Zoids and stuff, I have a lot of thoughts about a lot of different things. And all of it is kind of connected and associated to what I just discussed and what I mentioned. It's all kind of interwoven in a variety of ways. Oh yeah, like you do context clues? I'll do that one. Hector, you do context clues, but with people talking? Oh yeah, I know that one. That's the one where, like, you realize you've tuned out for 3 minutes, and so then you begin to pay attention again, and then you're like, okay, what did I miss? What did I... Oh, okay, I get it. Okay, yeah, I know what they're talking about now again. And in part of your mind, you're going, I hope they finish soon, because, like, it's gonna happen again. Then I gotta figure it out again. Are they done? And it's not like a anger thing. It's just like a you know, like that. That's how it feels. And it's why, like, ADHD people often interrupt. It's one of the things they'll do, interrupt, and mistakenly sometimes, because they'll be running under assumptions. It's like, oh, I've heard this conversation before. It goes like this. And you're like, can we skip it? Right. Nutrition packages always seem to have strings and hooks attached. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'll do it to my wife and her. She's not ADHD, at least not in the kind I am. And like, she'll tell me these long stories about things, and she has an amazing memory, and she'll remember all these details. She'll know everything that everyone said and how they said it, and she'll know where the car was parked, and how, like, she'll know all these details about how an event occurred. And for her, it's very much her experience and her way of conveying things to sort of go into a significant amount of detail. Now, you combine the ADHD and my fucking macro-associative thinking, it's really... She used to get more upset years ago, but now she's just like, hey, you still with me? Like, kind of attitude. I'm like, yeah. I'll be like, all right, so this and this and that, and she'll be like, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool. But or she'll try to, like, you know, compartmentalize it a little better. She'll be like, anyway, oh yeah, but or I'll say like, yeah, I kind of get, yeah, I get that part, and then she'll be like, okay, and then she'll kind of like move to the next part, knowing that like maybe it's better just to move to the next part because she knows it won't all stick anyway. Like, so it's cool. Like, that part's cool. But anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I'm done. Thanks a lot for being here. By the way, before you leave, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Now, seriously, guys, for those that help me on Patreon, thank you very much. I know I've lost a few people on there because they didn't like that one video that I put up where I was like, get your asses in gear, schizoids. I didn't say it like that. And then other reasons, I don't know, maybe because I haven't been streaming enough. But point is, to those that did stick around or are around, thank you very much. And also, if you're ever on the server, there's a Zoid Void server. If you really sincerely think you're dealing with schizoid, or you are diagnosed or something of that nature, you can apply to the server. Me and the mods are very considerate about a lot of different things, and we make our decisions not lightly when it comes to like who we let in and not let into the schizoid portions of the server. If you're not a schizoid but you're still interested in the stuff I have to say and discuss, then I welcome you to the other server, which is the Angsty Divergent server. Nobody's using it. It's a dead server at the moment. I love it. The Zoid Void, which is full of schizoids, is like very much not dead. But the server I'm trying to make that's not specifically schizoids is dead as fuck, which is funny. But please, Zoids, you can use that one too to fuck around and find out in whatever way you want. And for the people out there, there's schizotypals and autists and ADHDers and, well, anybody really that's interested in what I'm discussing or what I bring up sometimes on streams or whatever else, please use it. There's a section for everything. There's psychology, there's politics, there's you know, art, there's whatever. The only thing I ask of people when they're on that server is to try your best to communicate in as much good faith as you can, because I think that is something that is very much lacking in this world. Very much lacking. But anyway, for those that give a shit about helping me pay my bills, I do work full-time plus overtime, but God knows it's not enough. So if you want to help me with some little things here and there to make my life easier, please, Patreon, PayPal, every dollar counts. It fucking helps a lot. Gas is expensive, and I know a lot of you Zoids out there are probably like more like single and working, so families are expensive. What else? Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, you could also see my Steam profile on the description if you want to see my gamer cred. Somebody asked about my game interests. Well, look at that, and you'll see all my games that I'm interested in. And yes, I am an achievement whore, but mainly because it's the way I like to pay tribute to video games that I respect and appreciate. It's like just my weird way that I do that I find cozy, enjoyable. That it? I feel like I'm missing saying something important. Oh yeah, this is important. If for some reason, besides being on the server, but if you have like questions about like, oh, I think I'm a Zoid, I think this, I'm, you know, if you have a question or two, maybe 3, you can DM me. My DMs are open for that kind of stuff. Now, how quickly I respond, if I respond, or any of that kind of shit, that's for me to decide. But I try to. So, and I can't diagnose anybody, but I can definitely discuss the topic enough to decide of my own personal opinion what might... I know what questions to ask. And as long as the person answers honestly, I also don't like people wasting their time, like thinking, oh, I have some of these traits, I must be schizoid, or I must have this issue. And then they spend a lot of time looking into something and putting their eggs in a basket that isn't really the basket they should be putting their eggs in. And then they just end up causing themselves more confusion and more this and more that. And that's not helpful to reducing harm of any kind for anybody. So if you're like wondering and you just want to discuss that, ask me questions. I'll answer when I can, and I might ask you questions and answer them honestly. That's pretty much it. And I do that shit for free. So please be patient with me. Okay. Bye, everybody. And as usual, when day is dark, always remember, happy day. But sometimes, when needed, get fucking angry instead.